So what's up, YouTube? I want to come through for a moment and just talk about how dark-skinned and brown-skinned black men perpetuate colorism and compare that to how light-skinned mixed and biracial men perpetuate colorism. And this sort of came about because on some videos, some women, probably brown-skinned, dark-skinned women, oddly enough, brought it up like, oh, light-skinned men perpetuate colorism. And I'm like, if y'all don't get out of here with that bullshit. I'm not saying that like the light-skinned dudes are completely innocent, but I think sometimes when this comes up, I think people oftentimes want to find an equivalent for some reason and push that, kind of like pushing as if the light-skinned brothers perpetuate colorism at the same rate, if not more, than dark-skinned brothers do. And that's not something I'm going to entertain right there. But I will entertain exploring different differences and similarities into how dark-skinned men and light-skinned men perpetuate colorism. Personally, I feel like the dark-skinned brothers perpetuated a lot more than the light-skinned brothers. And I also think they're in the position that when they perpetuate it, it probably can do the most damage, oddly enough. Because honestly, if this was just coming from light-skinned men, I feel like that would just be a reason to get rid of light-skinned dudes from the community. We already know that, that's part of the agenda, It's just to phase out light-skinned men from the community. I actually have a video that discusses, what if, pretty much discusses a what-if scenario of taking the light-skinned male influence out of the black community and how that would play out. But when it comes to dark-skinned brothers versus light-skinned brothers and perpetuating colorism, I think it's going to come down to overt colorism versus covert colorism. I feel like the dark-skinned, brown-skinned brothers are much more overt with the colorism versus the light-skinned brothers who are more covert with it. They tend to be a bit more tactful, for lack of a better word, with it. While the dark-skinned brothers just like, they do not give a fuck. Shit. But to be fair, there are some tactful, colorless, dark-skinned brothers out there too. They know how to cover their tracks and, hide from scrutiny. But covert versus overt, all right? And I feel like the community allows brown-skinned and dark-skinned men to be overt with colorism. But I feel like they wouldn't accept that behavior from a light-skinned, mixed or biracial man. I feel like that's when the battle cry would be strong, right? That's when everybody would probably want to attack, right? And partially I think that may be a reason why you don't see overt colorism as much from light-skinned mixed biracial men. Also because I just think that light-skinned mixed and biracial men just may be at a place within themselves where they don't have like the self-loathing aspect. It's like, I put it like this, it's like if you don't have love for yourself, then you can't give love to somebody else because you don't have love, right? So in the case of the light-skinned men, like, they have love for themselves, right? So what they give, it's hard for them to give hate because they have love for themselves, right? Now, on the flip side, if you are a self-hating person, let's say a self-hating dark-skinned, brown-skinned brother, man, and you don't have love for yourself, but instead have, hate and self-loathing, then you can't give love. You can only give hate and loathing to people, right? You gotta, oftentimes people want to sort of push that energy onto somebody else, right? Because they don't like the way that that energy makes them feel. Another thing that I want to bring up is colorism targets, right? I feel like the dark skin, brown skin men's colorism targets tend to be brown skin and dark skin women and light skin mixed biracial men for some, right? Those tend to be the primary targets of when it comes to the brown skin, dark skin brothers for some reason. Well, if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Because they would target women who are reflective of themselves, since when they see those women remind them of themselves. And if you don't like yourself, you don't want to be reminded of yourself, right? So, and also those women unfortunately are an easy target, right? Um, but it really sucks that it's coming from the men that really are supposed to protect them. They're supposed to be like their protectors, right? They're supposed to be like the knight in shining armors that come to their rescue, not the villain of the story. Yeah. So the dark skin, brown skin brothers don't like the dark skin, brown skin sisters because they remind them of themselves, right? And they don't like themselves because as quiet as is kept when they look in the mirror, they view something and look at something and view it as their reflection as something bad, something not good, you know. And then they lash out at the light skinned mixed biracial men. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it's kind of like, in a way, perhaps a display of like dominance and masculinity could be at play there, where it's like, let me, kind of like emasculate or dominate this man. He could view that light skinned mixed biracial man as kind of like being in his spot, being in his position, stepping on his toes, possibly taking opportunities from him, you know, just having some sort of a animosity because of that. Um, Although I do find it a bit weird that those same men will gravitate towards the light-skinned mixed biracial woman, though. You have all this hate and animosity and resentment towards the light-skinned mixed biracial men, but you gravitate towards the mixed biracial light-skinned women. I find that's really weird. It's like similar to like how some of these black men out here will be talking all types of smack about white men, but then be with white women. It's kind of like a bit of a mixed message, though. It's like, how you gonna hate the counterpart, but cling? You gonna hate the male counterpart, but cling to his female counterpart. That looks a little suspicious to me too. It's almost like you want to be in that position that the light-skinned mixed biracial man or the white man is in. It's almost seemingly as if you want that position. And perhaps I think, on some level, I think we as like light-skinned mixed biracial men often may get slack because perhaps on some level we are reminiscent of white men. Perhaps. I don't think that has ever come up before in colorism conversations, but as quiet as it's kept, I think that could be low-key at play. You know how racism and white supremacy tends to be associated with white men, right? not so much white females, even though we know that they play their part too. But, you know, I think the reason why the light-skinned mixed biracial females don't get as much slack is because the white females don't get as much slack, right? They're looked at as, the white females are looked at as not being participants in the system of white supremacy and upholding it. But we all know that that's not true. They do participate and benefit from it, and also they do uphold it, right? As I said, just think about it. If white women were just to say, you know what, we're not going to mess with white men anymore, you know, we're going to opt out of the white community and leave. White supremacy would be on its deathbed if that happened. Probably would just end up dying, right? And white men know that. White men know that they need the white woman to help them. That's why they, don't totally just discard their women like, some brown skinned, dark skinned brothers do, right? Um, yeah, they have issues, as, all groups of people do. But, you know, like they're aware of the white woman's worth to them, right? And on some level, I think that the brown skinned brothers and dark skinned brothers are aware of the brown skinned, dark skinned women's worth too. But I still think there's some sort of an issue there, though. Um, and as well, I really, honestly, I I feel like there is a low key internal struggle of some sort that some brown skin and dark skin men go through that them as a collective are extremely quiet about. Extremely quiet about. Um, I've kind of heard hints here and there within my life, you know, within my interaction in my life, when it came to interacting with, you know, brown skin, dark skin men. But I feel like there's low key some sort of a like internal struggle or some sort of a internal battle that they are very quiet about and that they don't speak on. And I don't know. I'm not sure where that comes from, other than perhaps being shamed for speaking on it, because I could see that happening. Also, being on code in terms of helping maintain the colorism hierarchy. Um, and I think for them, the way that they help, what they do to cope with that is to go after, women who don't resemble themselves, right? Because I think it sort of it gives them some sort of a like feeling of worth, right? Because this woman has some adjacency to, I'll say, whiteness, but also just some non-black adjacency, and it's like, hey, she chose you, you know. And I think, as quiet as it's kept, a lot of brown skin and dark skin brothers, they do love when the light skinned sisters especially uplift them, right? Especially when it's in comparison to the light skinned mixed biracial men. They definitely love that because they love being considered like the preference or the choice, right? It's like she's, rejecting her own counterpart for me. You know, I must be pretty damn awesome. I must be the shit. And, I feel like light skinned mixed and biracial men have, for the most part, been pretty good sports about it. They have not shamed light skinned mixed and biracial women for engaging in that type of behavior. They have not shamed brown skinned, dark skinned brothers as well. They've just going on and live their life, right? But to bring it back to perpetuating colorism, dark-skinned men versus light-skinned men, I feel like everyone who perpetuates colorism should be called out. I'm not saying that light-skinned men don't deserve a call out or that they're perfect, because they're not. You know, there are colorist light-skinned men out there too who have colorist views, and although I feel like light-skinned men's colorism targets, I think for the most part tend to just be perhaps maybe dark-skinned women or brown-skinned women, perhaps. But then again, I think perhaps maybe on some level they could target brown-skinned, dark-skinned men with colorism too. But I feel like if a light-skinned man is colorist, he will just avoid a dark-skinned woman, you know, and perhaps just not really acknowledge and speak about her. While if a dark-skinned man is colorist, right, he will not avoid her, the dark-skinned, brown-skinned woman, and he will speak about her. Something else interesting to note: I don't see a lot of I don't see a lot of light-skinned mixed biracial men being colorist towards their direct female counterpart. Now, their direct female counterpart may be colorist towards them, but I don't see that playing out so much vice versa, though. That's interesting to note. And we all know partially why that is, in terms of the light-skinned mixed biracial females being colorist, right? We know that they tend to be a little weak-minded, right? They tend to suffer from extreme identity issues, right? As well, sometimes they tend to suffer from self-esteem issues because of those identity issues. And then on the flip side, sometimes they suffer from, extreme feelings of superiority in comparison to darker skinned people, right? So a lot of times when they engage in, bashing their counterpart, their male counterpart, I think partially they do that to ingratiate themselves with dark-skinned men and just dark-skinned people in general. It's like, hey, I'm, bashing them and uplifting dark skin. I'm down, right? She a black, like, I'm a black queen, right? Don't some of these brown skinned, dark skinned brothers be hyping these chicks up to think that they black queens? But let a brown skinned, dark skinned sister say, oh, this light skinned dude is a black king. They will be challenging that shit to the end of the earth, right? Like if Serena Williams had pulled a Tyrese and came out and said, hey, Drake's my new black king, or like Common's my new black king, man, they would go in. They already be looking for reasons to go in on Serena anyway. That would just be a great reason for them to go in, right? But when Tyrese does this, right, then it's like we got to have all these damn discussions about who is black and who is not black and what is black, and um, is the black gene the dominant gene, and having all these damn seminars in biology and molecularology and shit, But I don't want to go on for too long, so I'm going to bring this video to a close, alright? I'm going to bring it to a close and catch you in the next video. But, let me know what you think in the comments section. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.